and Bruce Kemp. Bruce has a big bio. Bruce has been involved with the marine world since the 1970s. First as a diver and a shipwright, then as a writer and a photographer. He has established an international reputation for his creative style. He's generally regarded as one of Canada's top marine writers, and that career has taken him around the world. He's the author of more than 1,000 feature articles for magazines and newspapers. Bruce has written 2 books on the Great Lakes, Weather Bomb, 1913, Life and Death on the Great Lakes, and The Whales of Lake Erie. And he may be joining us in the fall to talk about an expansion of that first book. Today, Bruce has 2 new books in production and writing stages for Harvard Publishing Douglas McIntyre. Weather Bomb 1913 earned him recognition from and an associate membership in the International Shipmasters Association. He currently sits on the board of directors for the Briggs Toll Adventures, although I think he just released that place. And so if anybody wishes the board with them, you may be able to. And for Friends of the Rideau. And he's done that one too. His journalism work as both writer and photographer has taken him to more than 40 countries. Some of the major stories he's worked on were the America's Cup, 1983 to 1994. In 1986, he was commissioned to write the Canadian entry into the official America's Cup Challenger program. He was the Canadian media face during the Canada's Cup competitions from 1984 to 2004. Bruce also worked with Haida canoe carver John Bennett to record the techniques and the history of creating these incredible West Coast vessels. He was the first to report internationally on the recovery of Roald Amundsen's last Arctic exploration ship, the Maud, from its resting place at the bottom of the ocean near Cambridge Bay, and its 2-year transport through the unforgiving Northwest Passage and the North Atlantic to Oslo, where it now sits as part of the Amundsen collection in the museum. For a large part of his career, Bruce worked for the Toronto Star organization, first on its weekly sailing column and sailing-related feature during the sports pages. Then as a feature writer for Metroland in their marine and lifestyle divisions, he also edited Sailing Canada and Sail Ontario magazine. Additionally, Bruce owns several local newspapers. His work now mainly appears in Wooden Boat magazine. And indeed, there is an article in Wooden Boat magazine about the Severn II this month. So if you want to search that out. He's also written for Great Lakes Scuttlebutt and Canadian Woodworking and Home Improvement magazine. He has several awards. Caribbean Photographer of the Year, 2006, Best Travel Journalist Award from the Ontario Travel Marketing Partnership in 2006, and nearly a dozen first places and honorable mentions from the Travel Media Association of Canada, 2005 to 2017. As a teacher in 3 community colleges and 1 private college across Canada, he created Canada's first travel writing course as the developer of George Brown College's journalism program and taught photography. While at George Brown, he was named one of the top teachers in that school's continuing studies education department. Bruce was friends with the late Stan Rogers, whom he met, and Stan was finishing his last collection of songs. Bruce provided information on the Great Storm of 1913 and was the inspiration for the song Man with Blue Dolphins. Blue Dolphin was a 130-boat relay schooner that sank at the dock in Sarnia, Ontario, and on which Bruce worked as a diver to help raise. Bruce lives near the Rideau Canal in Merrickville and is restoring a 26-foot Grampian sloop when he has time to work on it. Please give Bruce a hearty welcome. And Bruce, you're now on.
I'm now on, okay. That's enough. Well, we heard everything about you. Thanks, Noel. Okay, just a little preface to the story. In 2022, I had to have a hip replaced. They put me under, put the new gear in. When I was coming out of the anesthetic, my wife rushed into the recovery room and said, Jesus, are you okay? Do you know there was a boat sunk off Toronto Island? Okay. That's really what you want to wake up to. But you know, that's kind of fun. Anyway, that was when Severn II sank during a race. I believe it was the final race of the spring series, and she was in a collision with Akeem, who was owned by Steve Reed, and you know, okay, those with sensitive ears, please plug them, because you know, sailors are the guys who came up with the phrase "shit happens." It was an accident. You know, nobody really at fault. And anyway, my involvement came after I kind of wore off the anesthetic, and I realized there's probably a good story here. So I called my editor in Wooden Boat in Maine and said, hey, Matt, you know, we should do something. He gave me the go-ahead. And so I spent the next 2.5 years following the recovery, the cleaning, the reconstruction, launch, and the sailing again. And so what you're going to see are a number of photographs, and you're going to hear my boring voice now talking about them. But from they were shot for the article. They didn't all appear in the article, of course. Over the 2.5 years, we shot more than 4,000 pictures through this. So, you know, it's kind of fun, and then I like the pictures. I know the guy who took them, so you know they're okay. I should say I have big thanks to Eric Rogers from Toronto Dry Dock. He provided some of the underwater pictures, and Derek Niles from Orange Forest Marine. They were the guys who did the side scan sonar to locate the ship. So it was a, you know, I'd like to take credit for the article, but it was really a cooperative effort. A lot of people contributed to it, so you know it worked out very, very well. It's on the newsstands now. Dorothy over the Nautical Mine has copies if you want to pick them up. All right, so
You know, as good as Harry Potter.
here we go.
Yes, try to get.
Well, there we are. Okay.
Foggy.
Was that?
Yeah, it was foggy.
Yeah, it was foggy. Anyway, one of the reasons I was intrigued with the story, aside from the shipwreck aspect, I'm getting a bad name as being the shipwreck writer. You know, don't let me near your boat because it's going to sink. That's guaranteed. The last 3 stories I did for Wooden Boat, all about shipwrecks. Okay, so as the title says, recovery, reconstruction and relaunching of Severn II. Now, one of the reasons I did feel particularly attracted to these stories because I love the international class boats. They're the most elegant and beautiful ships that we have afloat. I photographed everything from 12 meters down to 5.5s, and believe me, they're just splendid. And they photograph well. They're like a pretty girl. Anyway, so I'd like to thank, as I said, Eric Rogers and Derek Niles. Also, I'd like to thank John Buck Michelle. A lot of you guys will know the Michelle family from RCYC. They raced Thisbe. John drove the photo boat for me, and you know, his knowledge helped to make this series. Mother, here we go. Here's the new and improved stern of Severn II. Okay, Toronto is well known for the 8-meter fleet. And, you know, it's a real joy to get out and see these boats in action. And sadly, these shots of Norseman and Bangalore didn't make it into the article. But I was terrifically pleased with how they worked out. And John Michel was instrumental in these. So you probably recognize the skyline and the sail numbers. Come on. Now, one of the things about Severn II, it's owned by Sed Giles Jr. Sed is part of the, I would say, legendary Giles family. Sed Giles Sr. is responsible for keeping the class alive, basically, in the Toronto area. And he owned Norseman and at one point Bangalore and a number of others. And he really rised that fleet, or I should say drove that fleet. So this is Sed. Sed passed away a few years ago, but come on. The Giles family continues on. That's Sed. Sed's brother John, who did the reconstruction on the boat, the grandson Alex. So, they're still very, very much there. I had the privilege 2 years ago of doing a story on the 5.5s, and of course, one of the 5.5s was Jill, owned by Sed's nephew. So this is Severn on the bottom. You can just see it there. It's in a little video window. She sank in 189 feet of water just out here. Come on. And that's a pretty fair depth. If anybody knows anything about underwater recovery, that's a major problem. So here she is sitting on the bottom. There's all the information about this. These are from Eric, and they're taken on a cell phone. Just a little piece of advice: if you want to submit anything for publication, get rid of your damn cell phones. Get a real camera.
Bruce, a question. How long would he have to be allowed to be down at that depth? How long did you be there?
Can we leave the question?
Yeah, okay. We'll get to that after. I got an announcement I'm going to make after that. Anyway, this is the first image of Severn II on the bottom. This is the side scan sonar image. Doesn't look like much, but it's that bingo that everybody has when they find a shipwreck. Here's a little better version of that, and you can just make out that it's kind of a ship. Now, it was odd that they found it so quickly. Two things happened. One is that the crew had the presence of mind to take the Latin along of where she went down. Now, that doesn't guarantee that the ship sank straight down. When you're dealing with ships sinking, they're like a leaf. They flutter. And if there's a current, they move, they walk away from it. So you're never sure exactly where you are. So you've got to look for these things. And the other problem is that there's a hell of a lot of shipwrecks out here off of Toronto Island. So you're not sure you got the right one. So anyway, this is the one that they worked on, and it worked out very well. Come on. Did you change the batteries in this, Graham?
You gotta press it really hard and,
And game it out.
Can you move me ahead?
oh, sorry, I had to do something, yeah.
Bruce.
Bruce, point at the machine.
No,
No,
okay, I had to change focus because of stuff doing it. Try now.
okay, there we go. Now, one of the particular problems with the boat being underwater is, it settled pretty well straight down on its keel, into the mud. Now, anybody who's been around Toronto Island long enough knows what that mud consists of. It's been the sewage basin for Toronto for 200 years. And anyway, it settled almost up to the water line. So they couldn't pass slings under it, which would be the normal procedure. So they decided, they talked to Steve Killing. They did the lift computations. Steve did the lift computations for them. And they decided, it was possible to raise the ship by passing a hawser around the mast and under the boom at the gooseneck and bringing it up, just winching it literally up by the throat, so to speak. And to get the hawser under the gooseneck, they had to put these big shackles on it to weight the line down because it was a polypropylene line and it floated. Maybe you just advance me there, Greg. Go right to the next one. Okay. All right. So this is on the surface now, and you can see the size of these shackles that they had to use to sink this line. It was a pretty complicated resurrection, so to speak. Okay. That's shortly after she broke water. Now, the trick with raising a ship, any ship, is that the ship weighs nothing underwater. The minute the gunwales break water, it takes on weight. So they had to bring high-speed pumps on board and just literally suck the water out of it so they would float. And by that point, yes, it still had a hole in the bottom, but they were aware of it and they were able to overcome the inflow of water by pumping out with the high-speed gas pumps from, I believe it was the Toronto Harbor Police that gave them the gas pumps. There we go. And they hogged the boat to a ribby and brought it over first to Marina Key West here. And then the next morning, they transported it to Outer Harbor, where they took the stick off and loaded it onto a transport truck. Now, John Giles is an exceptionally good shipwright. And he operates a shop up in Thornbury. So, it's a couple of 100-kilometer trip to get the damn boat up there, but it was worth it. So they loaded the boat on here, took it up to Thornbury. He let it sit out in the yard for about, I think he said 2 months before he brought it into the shop and started cleaning it up. And the thing was, is that once they got it up there, they had to clean what filtered out from the bottom in the boat and disinfect the boat. And then, then it had to dry out even further before they could begin the repairs on it. Now, okay, this is the boat in the shop, and that's John doing his thing. You can see the damage on the bow, but this is not the damage that sunk the boat. This is just, the stem is just chewed up from the collision. And a testament to the boat is that's a white oak stem, and it was still in excellent condition. Okay, a little closer shot of some of the damage. That's that's a shot as it's in the travel lift over at Outer Harbor. They got that just as a record shot to show what kind of damage was done. Well, this is the hole that sunk the boat. Now, when the collision occurred, everybody was busy on deck. The mast of the Keam and the mast of Severn got tangled up. And so they were busy trying to sort the mess out. And they didn't realize that, she was shipping a lot of water. They have a 1,000 gallon per hour auto bilge pump on board, but they just didn't keep up with it. And this hole is about 14 inches long, 12, 14 inches long by about 3 inches wide. And that's what took the ship down.
Yeah.
Where's the hole?
Oh, it was on the port side, or oh God. Yeah, I believe it was on the port side, about a third of the way back from the bow.
They were on starboard, just not,
Yep, they had right away.
Sorry?
they were on starboard, just not.
Can we wait for the
Yeah.
questions? to line?
Anyway, during the collision, Severn skidded down the side of a Keam. And Steve Reed told me he looked up and he saw he was looking up at the water line of Severn as it rode up on his gunwale. And one of the things that happened was the boat hit the big Lumar primary winch. And that's the tattoo from the Lumar winch in the wood of the Severn II. And the winch actually tore off and went to the bottom with it and was stuck in the bottom when they brought it up. And said is keeping the winch as a trophy. Okay. The major damage, oddly enough, was the rudder. When she settled, settled rudder first, and it tore the pindles and gudgeons right out of the deadwood on the keel, and so they had to rebuild the rudder, and but they managed to recover. It was kind of pinched in the rudder stock tube. And it came up with the wreck, so it worked out well. And you can see where, it literally just ripped the hardware out. It's a considerable amount of damage, but they didn't have to replace a lot of wood. The horn timber had been replaced, I believe it was in the early 2000s. And white oak, and it was still in good condition. A bit of checking. I mean, if you know anything about wood, checking happens. But the horn timber was in pretty good shape. So it reduced the amount of work they had to do in repairing and restoring the boat. Go. Another look at it. And you can see, there's no rot there. It's in pretty good shape. Now, one of the things I was intrigued with is I thought, well, this boat's been underwater for 10 days. And, at let's call it 190 feet, the pressure on that's 4 atmospheres. So take, let's 14 point something at the surface, multiply that by 4. And that's the amount of pressure trying to force the water into the wood of the hull. Okay, throughout the entire hull. But they had taken and epoxied the interior of the hull. A lot of times you see wooden boats, they just epoxy the exterior. But Said and John epoxied the interior of the boat, and that protected it. The planking on the boat was in perfect condition, except where the damage was. You know, and didn't suffer any bad reaction to being submerged at that pressure for so long. So that, you know, you can see it's kind of scabby looking, but it's in good shape. One of the big problems was the plywood on the boat. Okay, the solid wood planking was no problem, but the plywood. And you can see John here just testing the cabin top. And this is after they stripped all the hardware off the boat. And he pointed out that the plywood itself was delaminated. You can see the brown streaks running down by the chain plate there and under the car rail. That's the glue from the plywood, and it really suffered. So they had to do a lot of work to replace the plywood and make sure it was good. Also, you know, these boats are highly varnished. And the water gets in under the varnish and it bubbles up. I used to race on a 30 square meter. It was bright finish, solid mahogany, bright finish, 30 square meter. And we sank it one spring because we decided to go for a veer instead of watching the pump. And for the rest of the season, we looked like a leper going down the race course. I mean, the varnish was flaking off in huge big pieces of skin. And I'm sorry, let's see that here. So you can see where the varnish is starting to bubble up. Okay, and that's one of the jobs that they had to do to get the boat back in shape, was to redo all the bright work. And that's for any of you who've had to do bright work, that's a major pain. Now, John cored the deck to see how the plywood in the deck was. So it looked pretty good. And they didn't replace the deck. But, you know, there were the cabin top and I believe one part of the bulkhead had to be replaced. Okay, come on. Okay. You know, they had to go right to the point of taking the tow rails off. And to break the lock on the tow rails, John was hitting it with a soldering iron to heat it up and break the lock on it for the screws, for the bolts. And then these are the bolts, and he replaced them when the boat was ready to go again. Oh. Okay, so July 4th, 2025. Severn loaded on a truck and brought back down to Toronto. And relaunched at Outer Harbor. And honestly, you would never think this boat had been underwater. John had done such a beautiful job. I like to say my eyes hurt looking at it. That's her in the slings just before going in. And there she is, first time back in the water. And she is pristine. And, you know, it's rare to find a craftsman who can do this at that level. But look at the bright work and, all the work that he's done on the winch or on the, coamings and the cabin top. It was just like the boat had rolled out of Milne's yard in 1932. 32, 34. And of course, new gear put on, old gear reconditioned. Just really lovely, lovely looking ship. Even the sliding hatches reconditioned and replaced. That elegant pintail stern on the aviator is just, one of the things that is ultimately attractive about them. So back in the water. This is in September last year, early September, I managed to get down to Toronto. I live in Miracle, as Diana said, so it's a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive to get down here. But I came down specifically to see Severn under sail and photograph her as she is today. I photographed her a number of times. She was in the 2006 Worlds. I, photographed those and a couple of other guys. But boy, she was standing up and dancing that day. I just found that worked very well. And Buck Michelle, was driving the boat for me. So we had this ongoing conversation about best angles and things. She is quite pretty to see in photograph. It's like the crew seems to love the boat. So these are just basically some sailing shots. I really don't have much. Oh, I should say, I think she came in second last year overall in the fleet. But it's, these boats are, I know there's a number of aluminum boats and glass 8 meters. But the woodies are just too valuable to lose. So, an old boat, designed by Mill in Scotland, in the 1930s, is still a competitive vessel. So that's it. She's going to continue to sail on. I understand she's up for sale. They got kind of $250,000 sitting around loose and not doing anything. Not a good boat to buy. But anyway, that's it, folks. Thank you very much. I'll just leave that out.
Questions, Jim?
2 questions. One, what was Severn 1 and what was the dates of when things happened to Severn 2, please?
Okay, Severn 1 sailed in England. It was there This is why they had it became Severn II. As far as I know, and don't take this to the bank, but it's still sailing. The original Severn is still sailing, so, the dates that these things happened, it was in June 2022, that she sank. 10 days later, she was brought to the surface. 2022, yeah. Then she was towed immediately up to Thornbury, to John's shop up there. He has Giles, Sales and Marine. And, they do a lot of decent work up there. Then she came down on July 4th, 2025.
3 years.
Yeah. Well, basically 2.5 years. Well, 3 years from the sinking. But 2.5 years in the reconstruction, because they had to dry her out. They had to decontaminate before they dried her out.
How did they do that?
I understand it was, there is a, chemical, sanitizer. You can use it, on it. So, Allison.
So I'm curious about the cost of recovery to bring her up from the bottom and how much of that cost
That's,
would have been covered under insurance.
well, the insurance, I understand, covered everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, except deductibles.
Ballpark is fine, I'm just.
I have no idea. Nobody wanted to talk about that. And it's like dealing with Donald Trump. You can't force him to answer.
Any knowledge of the cost of restoration?
I would say all in, this is a guess. God, don't take this to the bank or publish it. I would say conservatively $250,000. The raising, the restoration, and the relaunching.
That's interesting because our last speaker talking about, what's the name of that boat that we talked about? And it restored, it was.
Yeah, Skipper.
Skipper.
Yeah, I wrote the story on that. That's one of my shipwreck boats.
So it was over $1 billion.
Yeah, yeah.
Restored.
Wooden boats are lovely, but you gotta throw a lot of money at them.
I seem to recall sailing on Severn when the hull was yellow. Is my memory failing me?
Well, it may not. I can't tell you.
Okay, because
I mean, maybe somebody here
it was brought to
remembers that.
Canada, I think by Steve Cameron.
Okay, I remember Steve Cameron did own it. He was
And
one of the,
I was on it with him and I thought the hull was yellow. Maybe it was changed.
well, he was one of the 2 original owners that brought it over from Europe.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard.
First of all, great Richards, Bruce.
Oh, thank you.
Credit to that. I know you took thousands.
Yeah.
To select these few is just great. And how long could the divers be underwater at 190 feet?
190 feet, that's in the range we call technical diving. It's mixed gas, so the nitrogen and a couple other argon and, very little oxygen, because people don't realize oxygen is toxic under pressure. And so, you hear somebody talk about putting on the oxygen tanks and going diving, and that's the first signal they don't know what they're talking about. But technical diver with a tri-gas mix could probably stay down for about half hour, 45 minutes.
And then decompress on the way up?
Yeah, you'd have to decompress on the way up, but they didn't use a diver. Eric just decided it was easier to do it this way. Okay, Noah, you had a hand up.
Oh.
Or are you just gonna give me a tough time again?
Wonder if it was a mixed gas, but they didn't use divers.
No, they didn't. I was surprised at that because, the other recoveries I've been involved with, were all used divers.
So
How would
How'd they
they?
get the shackle around?
Yeah.
Sorry?
How'd they get the big shackle around the mast?
They use a robot?
With an ROV, yes, sorry. yeah, they dragged the line down with a remote operated vehicle and threaded the eye of the needle that way. And, so the underwater pictures that you saw of her sitting on the bottom, they were taken by the ROV.
I just got to credit you for the length of time you invested in this.
Well, it's a hell of a story.
But I mean, you came back with pictures, so this isn't one-off, go visit and get us up the shop.
Well,
This was-
you know, Richard, you've known me long enough. You've got to look at my life. I do what you guys pay big money to do, and I get paid to do it. You know, so I'm very lucky that way, and I love to, you know, when a story like this is in front of you, you know, you do it no matter what. And, you know, recording some history here.
I may not have been listening carefully at the beginning, but tell me what the boat hit. What was the collision?
Okay, I'm a little reluctant to get too far into that. Okay.
But generally.
Okay, generally, they were coming up to the final gate, and
It was a race.
it was in a race, and they somebody misread the mark,
Okay,
and
and they hit the mark.
no, they corrected to go through the proper gate, and then the two boats came together. And the mast tangled on all the rig, of course, the standing rig and the running rig are all balled up. And then Severn rode up, and this is why I keep thinking it's on the port side. Rode up on the starboard rail of the beam and slid down the rail. And someplace along in that journey, it poked that hole in and ripped off the primary winch. And you know, it was
And the rudder came off
when it
right at the bottom.
yeah, but it didn't come right out. It kind of pinched in the rudder tube. And so that when they brought it up, the rudder came up.
Yeah, so the wood planking was not affected by the
No.
pressure. I mean, we're talking about.
Except we're in contact.
Right, because I mean, 33 feet of water is an atmospheric pressure.
Yes.
So we're talking about.
About what?
Six.
6 atmospheres.
Six
Yeah, not 4,
atmospheres.
6 atmospheres.
So what was affected by that immense pressure?
The-
The plywood
Basically, the plywood.
and nothing else?
No, solid planking was fine because first off, it had been coated with epoxy, so that made a vapor barrier, so to speak.
So do you know about other shipwrecks, other wooden shipwrecks that are at depth? What compression would have done to the wood? Would it mulch it or?
Well, no, it wouldn't mulch it. Actually, in some instances, if you ever, you know, cruise into Tobermory Harbor, if you go into Big Tub Harbor, there's a wreck there, the sweepstakes from 1880. And I mean, it's like, it just sank yesterday. The deck is there, the deck housing, the whole structures are all there. You know, the capston's still on it. And it's the cold water helps to preserve it, and the fact that it's not saline. You know, there are several other wrecks up there. There's a schooner called the Arabian, 100 feet long. And she's in really good condition for a boat that sank in 1884. You know, so there are a lot of reasons why you know, why these boats are preserved. Okay.
Remind me where the hook was, how did it actually lifted it?
They brought the ROV down with a small line, threaded it under the gooseneck. You know, so forward of the gooseneck, forward of the mast, under the gooseneck and back up, so threading the needle.
On the deck.
On the deck. The mast was pinned in, it was pinned in on the keel. with a number of, I think said 16 bolts. So they could do the lift on the mast itself.
Wow.
And then they brought the traveler line around, and then they fed three other lines down to get the final lifting hawser into position.
So being able to lift by the mast was luck.
Yeah,
So,
well, luck and good construction,
yeah.
you know, good construction is not luck.
And what happened to the other bus? Did that go down also?
No, they towed her, to, where's Steve on it? Etobicoke? Yeah, and, you know, stripped her there, and, I understand she's been sold on to another buyer, or to another owner.
Got a question from the email. What would the owners have done differently from what they've learned? Do you know about any of that?
They never go to sea.
No, regards to the, would they have done anything different? No.
No, because, you know, everything happened so fast. I mean, she went down in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it was really, really quick. And they were more concerned with getting the people off the boats than, you know, farting around trying to figure out what happened.
Yeah.
So, let me add a signature point here. Has anybody heard of fothering?
Yeah.
So if your boat's got a hole in the side, you throw a sail over the side and
Yeah.
it suck into the hole and it stops water coming.
Yeah, but the thing is that they were rushing to untangle the rig. I don't know if they could have gotten either of the sails off the you know, off their deck to do that. Because everything was,
Have other sails.
sorry?
They would have had other sails.
Well, they would have had other sails below, but everybody's on deck trying to, you know, trying to straighten the mess out.
10 minutes isn't a long
Oh,
time.
That's the point.
Graham, are there any questions from Zoom?
No. Charles,
Yeah, just, so Severn II is going down. Just before she's going down, she's still entangled with the other mast, you know,
well, they got it free.
they got it free.
Yeah,
And they didn't cut any of the halyards,
no,
so it was
They didn't have
stank
time.
to the bottom. Halyards intact. And that
Halyards, running
that
backstays,
must have really helped
sheets.
writing it.
I think the fact that, you know, the stays, one of the starboard stay was still. No,
That's that
the
picture
port stay was still.
Picture shows the mast upright.
Yeah, in the
on
water,
bottom.
yeah.
So
So, you know, you've got your forestay, you've got your shrouds, and you've got your backstays.
and the moment that they were getting everybody off the boat, somebody had the foresight to drop the sails.
Yeah, well, I think that occurred kind of naturally. You know, it was so confusing that getting a straight story out of it was like getting a straight story of Donald Trump. You know,
Thank you, Bruce. We should have a special jar just for that word.
Have you seen the video of produced by Owen Naidu of the 20th century and how they took a robot and the cruise ship and that?
I have seen it. I don't have possession of it, but that's, you know,
That gave a good indication of how they
yeah.
different boats sort of.
By the way, we did try and contact Berlin many times, but couldn't have any response from him. Yeah.
Normally, what would happen is, you know, with a wreck, we would pass big slings fore and aft underneath it and lift it that way. But because it was stuck in the muck, they couldn't get underneath, and that's why they had to go the road of bringing it up by the mast. Well,
Just a minute, that's Rosemary.
yeah, Rosemary.
Was there a sale counted jury, claim on it that was written up?
I'm sorry?
Sail Canada.
Yeah, they did it. John did a small piece on it. He
No, I
wanted,
think she's asking, was there a protest hearing?
sorry?
Was there a protest hearing?
Yes.
I believe there was, but that was all kind of, from my point of view, from my working point of view. I was not privy to that because there was litigation going on. And I can't go in and, write about what's going on. And they, obviously the insurance companies didn't want anybody talking out of school.
Do they happen to be the same insurance company?
I don't know. I know very little of it from that end.
You had a hand up?
I've always been wondering about the sales now. You said that they took the sales down before the sale.
I think the sales came down.
And
I think they
is that
broke
something
the
that
bite on the
How
halyard
goes
and let it
straight-
drop.
Sort of straight down rather than maybe.
But you could see in the one slide where it's kind of blossomed over the deck.
Yeah.
So I think what happened was they broke the bite on the halyard. On the cabin top, just let it fly,
Yeah.
and down she came. I think that's what happened. But again, people's memories of all this stuff
Yeah.
is really hard to nail down. So I did the best I could. I've interviewed everybody, and the stuff that I was certain of, I wrote into the story. The stuff I wasn't certain of, I didn't.
Sally.
Sally,
Did the insurance want it raised?
I'm sorry?
Did the insurance industry want it raised, or were they happy for it just to sit there and pay out?
I'm not sure. I don't think they were too happy.
I don't think it would be either.
No, I don't think, knowing insurance companies, I'm pretty sure that they're sticking themselves. Well,
Okay, Jim, last question. Oh, no, one more after that.
Okay, two
So
questions
Jim
then.
first.
Can you leave a boat? Can you leave a boat down there or should you, is there something move?
well, you have to make all reasonable efforts to recover a ship. But at some point, it's impossible. You can legislate, you gotta do it. But doing it is a different ball of wax completely.
The number of,
Well, the number out here, I mean, they were sunk purposely,
And
you can't,
in the same area, a dragon was racing and inside, they never recovered it.
yeah.
That was the last 10 years or so.
okay, Jim, last question here.
Exactly where was it that it sank? And
Oh,
44
no.
degrees, 37 minutes. Thank you. And are there environmental issues about dumping sewage waste?
Oh, today, yes.
Well, today there are, but for 175 years of Toronto's history, that was the dumping ground. And
Remember
the city dumped it.
we had a speaker who talked about what happens from her home all the way to the water and through the sewage system. And it was gross. And the city has made many changes to put things like that away out, but also to, what do they call it? Clean it before it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
treat it.
So Bruce, thank you so much. That was awesome.
Another pin. Thank you. I can make anything. Thank you. One thing, couple years ago, when Shellbacks were over at Royal Canadian, I spoke about my book Weatherbound over there. And I'm about to release a new edition, probably September. And I don't know if you guys have been following the news over on Lake Huron. 1913, 8 large ships were lost on Lake Huron in 12 hours. And these are like 400, 500 foot freighters, and completely gone. And for the longest time, we knew the location of 2 of them. That was it. And a guy from Detroit named Dave Trotter put together a team of shipwreck hunters, and they began using side scan sonar and, oh God. I just lost the name of the other device, a magnetometer to locate the other wrecks. They just last summer found the last wreck, the James Carruthers. And so all the wrecks on Lake Huron are now accounted for. There's only one boat still missing, and that's a wooden schooner barge called the Plymouth. About a month ago, Trotter's organization got in touch with me. And maybe a whole new book coming, so we'll just keep that under your hat.
So thank you again, Bruce. Another
Okay.
big round of applause.
Thank you.